welcome to Maclog Volume 6, otherwise known as Day 6. So, this day I was traveling from Phoenix, Arizona to Hot Springs, California. And it was going to be a 5-hour drive. And so, good for me, I had learned finally how to finesse YouTube at this point. And I don't know if I told you this before, but I'll just review it again. Basically, I couldn't listen to music or play anything in my car because I didn't have signal, and I couldn't put a CD in because I didn't have a slot for CDs in my car or tapes. So I couldn't put in an aux cord either, and there was no Bluetooth. So, in order for me to listen to something on the road, I had to wait while I was in the city I was in for a YouTube documentary or something that was hours long to load fully. And so that way, when I was on the road, even if there wasn't signal, the video would still play. I know, genius, right? But anyway, so this trip I decided to listen to The Office, and particularly the writers and how they wrote the script of The Office, because I love The Office and I'm just into it right now. So I decided to do that, and along the way I saw some interesting sights. I saw a Buzz Lightyear and a Woody dangling from a truck, so that was cute. And then I also saw like this trailer towing at least 30 golf carts go by. And then there was also this really old car that was painted this emerald sparkly green, and it looked like a lollipop. I was pretty sure it was going to some car show somewhere, but that was really cool because it was striped all up along the top part of the car, but on the bottom it was just the solid green. Anyway, it was cool. Oh, forgot to mention, I woke up and saw the sunrise in Phoenix, and that was a very breathtaking moment. Just seeing like the golden sunlight splash across everything once it finally cleared the mountains. So it was really pretty. Highly encourage it if you're ever in Arizona. And the park was called South Mountain Park, I believe. So that was cool. But on to the next thing. Okay, so now comes the most interesting part of my trip, I would say, so far. And going to Desert Hot Springs, I had secured a room in a mansion. So I was excited about that. It was called the Flamingo Room. And so even though I had to drive like 5 hours that day, I was excited because I'd never been in a mansion. And so I drove to Desert Hot Springs, and I was about, 2 miles away, and I still hadn't entered into a city. And so I was kind of starting to feel a little bit weird because I thought, well, if there's a mansion, like, is it secluded? Also, the hills were very much desert, so there were kind of like mountains, but very small ones, and there were no trees anywhere, no wild trees, whatever. Hardly any plants, and everything was just very dirt, sand, and dry. So anyway, I'm going, and finally we're 2 miles out, and I'm thinking, where, what? And then I get into the valley, and I see, oh, there is a small little city there, tucked away in like the corner of these mountains, and it was very small. So I kind of drove in, and then I started to realize that this place was giving off an interesting vibe. There were no trees, like natural ones, and the ones that were there were just kind of sporadically thrown around. And there wasn't a lot of landscaping anywhere as I was driving in, so that clued me in a little bit. Also, the houses were only one story, and they were the square rectangular houses. So I was thinking, okay, this isn't the most wealthy of areas, but okay. And so I got in, and I went up to the mansion, and I got there, and I realized that this mansion was a mansion by like relative terms, because it also was only one story, but it was wider in space, and I'll get to that later. So I'm feeling kind of sketched out by this place. Also, there were people walking down the sidewalks or the streets, I guess, if you will. And they just didn't seem like the safest of characters. Or, like, I don't even know how to put it. Just bad vibe kind of a thing. Stared at your car as you went by. Anyway, so I got into the gate and I drove all the way up, and I couldn't see the mansion from the road, and that's because there was this really tall gate and then there were just palm trees like blocking it from view. So I thought, okay, this is interesting. The lady on the Airbnb site said that they were renovating the place or building it or something like that. So I thought maybe she just likes seclusion. I don't know. So I get in and I open the door, and I open the door into this huge living room, like very vast space, and it is so quiet that you can hear a pin drop. And so I'm sure that there's no other guests there because everything's so quiet. Take that back. There was a guy actually sitting outside doing like nothing, and so that was odd too. But anyway, went in, noticed that the floor was concrete. There was no carpeted area on this floor at all. So that was interesting. And then I noticed that there were like pictures on the walls, but they were odd, random, jumbled up things. So there was one that was like clearly a copy of some famous poster, but then there was like a map of America on another wall, and then there was a Christmas tree off in some corner, but it didn't have lights or ornaments. So I was just kind of like, okay. And then there was a beautiful ornate grandfather clock off against another wall. And then I noticed the furniture. Also, by the way, there was a fireplace like right in the middle of all of this. So you walk in, huge vast living room, completely concrete, and like not even like, oh, like the polished concrete that's becoming fashionable or whatever. No, like legit just concrete. And then there was this fireplace in the middle, and then there were random groupings of couches and chairs in places, and it looked like someone had gone to a yard sale, multiple yard sales, and just collected the best bits of furniture and kind of grouped them together by about the same color. So you'd have two pink couches, but one was like a little bit more pink than the other or something. So everything looked kind of hodgepodge, and I was like, I don't understand this. Also, there were cameras everywhere, and there were locks on every single door that you had to like punch in the key code to get to every single door. So that was interesting. Continued walking, trying to find my room, following the instructions, and I noticed off to my right there's this bar that is complete. Like, total mirrors up all around the wall, all bar stools, beautiful, and they all match, and the counters are great and everything. And I'm just kind of there thinking, okay, how is it that their floor is not even like slightly with it, but they have a perfect bar station? And so my brain thought, oh, well, maybe they just like bars. So I continued on, got to my room, opened the door, and oh, it looked nice. So I was like, okay, well, at least here I feel a little bit homey. Walked in, looked at the bed to put my stuff on it, and there were dog hairs on it, like German Shepherd dog hairs all over it. So I was kind of like, okay, clearly the maid didn't do her job, but maybe the sheets underneath are clean. So I take off the bedspread, look at the sheets, nope, there's dog hairs there too. And I look at the pillows, and dog hairs over them. So I take everything off, throw it on the floor, go out to my car, get my stuff, put it on the bed. And then by this point I've noticed some other things, like the floor was extremely dirty, like had not been swept. And also I don't know when the last time it had been mopped either was, because there were like random stains everywhere. And so I literally I didn't even want to walk on the floor. And here's the thing, like I used to clean houses for a living, and so, you know, some were more clean than others, and I'm really not a picky person, but like, no. So yeah, that was interesting. I basically, whenever I like changed clothes, I stepped into this laundry hamper that they had that was spectacularly clean, and I just kind of like changed in that. So anyway, I went to the grocery store, got dinner, ate that, decided to research the place I was in, because Desert Hot Springs just gave me a bad vibe. Looked it up. Turns out on the FBI website, it is rated the third most dangerous city in California, according to crime ratings. And I was just kind of like, oh, well, that explains it. That is our lovely Anaheim Police Department, and they go off all the time because there's a station near here. I didn't know if you heard the sirens or not. Anyway, commercial side break. Okay, over. Back to the main entree. So anyway, I was in this place, realized that it was a dangerous city, and that's why I got the vibe. But then I kind of comforted myself with the fact that I think I was in the most secure place in that entire city. What with all the obscureness from the road and the fence and the locks on every doors and keys to get into the driveway. And so that comforted me a little bit. Anyway, I finally solved the mystery the next morning. I woke up, went into the kitchen to make coffee, and I started to really actually look at the kitchen, which was a huge kitchen too, by the way. And then I saw vents above the one oven, but they were like huge restaurant vents. And then it clicked. This had been a restaurant, and they just hadn't removed the vents yet. And it explained all the rooms everywhere, because someone had probably like thrown up a wall and then just made rooms. But the living room had been the dining room area, and that's why the bar was completely completed, and also why the chimney was in the middle of everything, and why the floor was concrete, because they took up the floor or something like that. So all of it started to make sense, and that was the mystery solved. But anyway, there was my interesting adventures of day 6. Stay tuned for day 7. Thanks for watching.